When do I begin now? Onage, when is a rada? Tenetsuga is a west, a guego what kunuwaradu. Tenezi dakanaraja, Yatsananya, a guego saguga either west, when is a rada. Nezi gigo to no hodo kawi, postoa. Neduna dunka yetini stan huza. Say you got como haja, guego to no hodo your guts touch out the wind is a raga than a yatana jodukte. Nona dasatum goro anugan hodu gahrunu nioni. Saguna ne tunizi agwegu do daje. Ono na ne tinigane kajuku gwegu agwegu aska ne the wawet nuni de gora. Tanu datsidun waradun hodu the one dunka. The sawyera gasastan saragoa sogoya dizu. Tisegu agwegu yoskats tinizi ro godago. Hodu the one dunka na yetini stan huza ekadina na yotu na nugwa nigura. So at this time, following our ancient tradition and treaty protocols, I'd like to acknowledge each and every one of you that are gathered here at this particular time. As I'm looking around, we're all seemingly good mind, good health, and good spirit. And when we ask ourselves, why is that? Well, it's because we refer to this as Turtle Island, Mother Earth. And everything that we need for our sustenance and our happiness and our joy is all provided. And nothing is missing to everything on this lower world. Then when you look up, the things that are in the sky, the four winds, our grandfather the thunder beings, our elder brother the sun, our grandmother the moon, the stars, the star knowledge, the star people, and we all know that we're participating in a sacred dance of life. So we acknowledge the source of life for all life, the Great Spirit, the Creator God, and we say that we are grateful and that we are thankful to be here today in good mind, good health, good spirit. And we're all gathered here to talk about the great peace that we sit underneath this great tree and we bring our highest form of good, that we can talk about where we are today, because we have a responsibility not only to think about today, but those future generations that are coming, 7 generations ahead, so that when they will be born, they will inherit a happy, safe, clean, beautiful, peaceful, loving world. And that is our responsibility to them, and we cannot let them down. So now we're in this time where the indigenous spiritual knowledge and wisdom of this Turtle Island, if we believe it and we follow it, will give us the solutions and guide us so that we will all be able to celebrate and to be grateful for this happy home that we've inherited. Nyaokoa, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci beaucoup and welcome. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais souligner la présence historique des nations Mohawk, Algonquin, Huron-Wendat et Abénaquis dans la grande région de Montréal et sur le territoire de la ville de Montréal où nous nous trouvons aujourd'hui. Je profite également de l'occasion de remercier la ville de Montréal, les Montréalais et les Montréalaises de nous accueillir pour vivre ensemble cette COP 15. Très approprié que nous fassions cette annonce ici aujourd'hui à la biosphère, qui est un projet qui avait été condamné par le gouvernement fédéral précédent et que grâce à une collaboration entre notre gouvernement, le gouvernement du Québec et la ville de Montréal, nous avons pu sauver. Vous vous rappellerez donc que c'est le pavillon des États-Unis de l'Expo 67. Alors, la COP 15 est un événement mondial qui va permettre de faire découvrir à des dizaines de milliers de délégués de plus de 196 pays l'énergie, l'audace et l'influence de cette métropole que j'affectionne particulièrement. Mais l'événement qui nous réunit aujourd'hui témoigne que les peuples autochtones sont les leaders environnementaux, avec des perspectives, des connaissances, des cultures, des droits uniques qui peuvent aider à enseigner, à inspirer et à améliorer l'équilibre naturel. Les Premières Nations, les Inuits et les Métis jouent un rôle jouissent d'un très grand respect et jouent un rôle très important pour le respect de la planète. Indigenous people have been stewards of our lands, ice and waters since time immemorial. The impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss are felt as much on their health as on their traditional way of life. Indigenous knowledge and science must be at the heart of our approach to addressing these issues. Similarly, Indigenous-led solutions must be at the heart of achieving our ambitious climate and biodiversity goals. Protecting 30% of Canada's lands and waters can only happen with full partnership with Indigenous people. We know that. And we're acting on that on good faith with Indigenous leadership. With their collaboration, we can make the past a lesson, the present an example, and the future the new standard. To continue in this spirit of collaboration, I would now like to turn the floor over to someone who probably doesn't need much introduction, the 2020 Planetary Leadership Award winner from the National Geographic, someone who has my back all the time on many of these complex issues, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, to share important developments that will contribute significantly to Canada's conservation goals. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Gonyo-Sondir. Thank you so much for your words, your prayer, for starting us off on the right way as you welcoming us to this beautiful territory. Merci, Stephen, pour ton leadership infatigable. C'est grâce à des gens comme toi, dont la vie a été consacrée à protéger la nature et à agir pour le climat, qu'on est ici aujourd'hui. I want to recognize all the leaders and representatives joining us from across the country, particularly the Indigenous leadership that's with us today. As you see from this map, gathered here today are representatives from every corner of the country, with more work to do in other areas that demonstrate that the only way forward is in true partnership, drawing on the wisdom, the respect, and the knowledge that comes from Indigenous people who've protected this land for time immemorial. In 2018, we worked in partnership with the Dehcho First Nations to establish Ededje, which became Canada's first Indigenous protected and conserved area. Ededje in the Northwest Territories represents over 4,000 square kilometres of land, protects headwaters, is home to boreal caribou, and is of cultural and spiritual significance for the Dehcho and Tlicho Dene. This was and remains a major step forward on how we not just protect nature, but do it right, by working in partnership with Indigenous communities, and by listening when Indigenous people tell us that walking forward on reconciliation and making progress on conservation must go together. And if Ededje was a major step on the shared journey, then what we're announcing today is a leap forward. Ce matin, j'annonce que le Canada va investir jusqu'à 800 millions de dollars dans 4 grands projets de conservation dirigés par les peuples autochtones d'un bout à l'autre du pays, qui représentent un total de près de 1 million de kilomètres carrés. Il va y avoir un projet de conservation dans la zone marine du Grand Ours dans l'ouest, un autre dans le nord de l'Ontario, le projet de conservation des Omushkego, un projet dans la région de Qikiqtani au Nunavut et un dernier projet dans les territoires du nord-ouest. Chaque projet est unique en son genre et dans quelques instants, leurs représentants vont vous en parler davantage. Canada will provide up to $800 million to support 4 major Indigenous-led conservation projects across the country, covering almost 1 million square kilometers. Each of these projects is different because each of these projects is designed by communities, for communities. On the Pacific Coast, in the Great Bear Sea, we're supporting the group representing 17 First Nations to deliver an integrated bioregional marine conservation and sustainability initiative. Heading north, you'll reach protected boreal forests, rivers, and lands across the Northwest Territories in a project that's a partnership between 30 Indigenous governments across the territory, supported by the Government of Canada. From there, east and even further north, will take you to the Kiktani region and a vast network of protected waters and land, safeguarded through Inuit stewardship and governance, founded on Inuit Kauyamayuk. And then south to western James Bay and the world's third largest wetland, and a vision of stewardship led by the Omushkego Cree. Ces projets visent autant à assurer le bien-être des communautés qu'à protéger la nature. On sait que pour créer des emplois et favoriser une économie forte, il faut absolument lutter contre les changements climatiques. Eh bien, c'est la même chose pour la protection de la nature. Communities have been clear. Safeguarding lands and waters will help build a strong future for generations to come. As a government, our role is to listen and support that vision. That has been our approach with other initiatives, like the Indigenous Guardians Program, which supports First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people on stewardship over traditional lands, waters, and ice. The role of partner underpins our approach with these new projects too, alongside others who've committed to join this work. I want to recognize also the leaders from foundations and philanthropic organizations who are part of stepping up to help make these 4 projects a reality. After all, conservation and protection take money for land planning work, for funding for communities on stewardship and monitoring, for supporting local jobs and growth. It takes resources to create a conservation economy where caring for the land is a career opportunity and where people can be stewards of their own homes. By working together, we're able to deliver that major necessary support no individual partners could provide alone. And that brings me to why it matters that we be announcing this today, as Canada welcomes the world to the largest nature COP we've ever seen. Aujourd'hui, on a fait un grand pas dans la protection de la nature et on l'a fait en partenariat. Ici, tous réunis à Montréal, on appelle à tout le monde de passer à l'action. Le monde entier doit en faire plus pour protéger la nature, mais on doit aussi bien le faire. J'espère que les autres pays vont se mobiliser. On espère que les 2 prochaines semaines vont confirmer notre engagement collectif pour mener une action mondiale. On a beaucoup à faire pour protéger la nature et on a beaucoup à faire pour avancer sur le chemin de la réconciliation. Et aujourd'hui, on démontre qu'on le fait ensemble. Encore une fois, merci à tous ceux et celles qui continuent de contribuer à ces efforts. With that, I'm very, very happy to pass it over to Grand Chief Linklater.
Wache Misue. I would like to thank our elder for sharing the short little song, but beautiful, and the words of wisdom. And I'd like to acknowledge the land that we are meeting on today, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, the Abenaki, and Anishinaabe. I'm very grateful for our Indigenous brothers and sisters for welcoming us into their territory. And I'd like to thank Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Guilbeault, my fellow Indigenous leaders, and all of you for gathering here with us today. I'm very honored to be here today to speak on behalf of our people, Omushkego, Illiluwak, and Innuit. Mushkego Council represents 7 communities: Misnabi Cree, Chapleau Cree, Tequategamau, Moose Cree, Fort Albany, Kashechewan, Attawapiskat. And we often work closely with Winisk First Nations on a variety of projects, and now we are beginning to develop a relationship with Fort Severn First Nation with regards to this marine-led initiative. Our people have lived along the James Bay and inland since time immemorial. Our territory is quite vast and makes up almost 1/3 of Ontario. And our people continue to use the lands and waters and have named every aspect of the lands and waters. And our people have stewarded the land since as long as I can remember. And it's only been recently, within the last 150 years, our ability to protect and look after our lands and waters have been interrupted. And many of our elders and members have asked me to ensure that our lands and waters are respected and protected. So taking care of our homelands is one of my sacred duties as Grand Chief. It is our lands and our waters that connects us to our culture, traditions, language. It is a part of who we are as the Omishkegwa, Ililwek, and Inuit. It also provides healing to our people. And without our lands and waters, we do not exist. Within our homelands lies the ancient peatlands. You know, it's been growing for over 1,000 years, and it stores billions of tons of carbon. And these wetlands have been cooling the planet for over 1,000 years. And our elders often refer to these lands as the breathing lands. Our wetlands feed many majestic rivers in our territory. These waters flow out to the bay and then into the sea. Many migratory birds go by our area, and our lands and our coasts are birthing place for many of North America's birds. There are a number of freshwater fish that live in our waters and move back and forth from the bay and in the rivers. Our coastline, it's quite long. It's about 1,200 kilometers, almost as long as Hawaii's coastline. We are pleased that the Omishkegwa responsibility and capacity to conserve and steward our sacred lands and waters is being recognized by Canada and the international and Canadian philanthropic partners of Project Finance for Permanence. We look forward to building on this moment in true partnership to create an Omishkegwa-led conservation area, an ongoing stewardship project. We know our relationship with the lands continue to be important for our people. It is because of this relationship it will help lead to a safer and healthier planet for all. Miigwech.
J'aimerais présenter maintenant George qui va prendre la parole pour le gouvernement du Nunavut. Merci.
Ulukun, kuya namig tamay tunakama, amalo, tuksyak ingkut ukukawin na kuya namig, taman na piliriyakan niya tawad ang iyungman. Good day, my name is George Kulaut. And I am here today representing Qikiqtanit Inuit Association, and I thank the elder for opening the prayer with a prayer. And it means a lot to us because of our ancestors who we represent. The mass majority of new protected areas in Canada over the past 10 years are the direct result of indigenous. Excuse me, my English is not that good, but I'll try my best. The indigenous leadership for Qikiqtanit Inuit. This builds on success of Tadlaroti Imanga, Canada's largest national marine conservation area. Qikiqtanit Inuit proposing a regional approach to managing nearly 1 million square kilometers of marine environment using the mosaic of protected area designations, including Inuit protected conservation areas. In my own generation had seen the changes so rapidly in a very, very short period of time, especially our climate, our environment, and the behavior of our animals. And it has changed so rapidly in a very short period of time. We need to take some actions, especially amongst the Inuit and the indigenous people who had witnessed all these changes, who are depending on the environment and the animals that we protect. We are encouraged to see the Government of Canada working closely with all partners in each initiative. This is a great moment for all Canadians. Honourable Prime Minister Trudeau and Honourable Minister Guilbeault, in making this announcement, it is important, all acknowledgement, you are asking Inuit to place tremendous trust in what your government is able to deliver. We are eager to partner with you to secure conservation and reconciliations outcome by 2025. Inuit expect that. Our work will result in tangible improvements in quality of life in our region. To do so, Inuit in Qikiqtaaluk region, we are seeking you to confirm a whole government mandate to advance. With respect to political reconciliation, our region is seeking. In final investment in Qikiqtaaluk Truth Commission through Honourable Minister Miller, were currently resolved before Minister Freeland for a final decision. With respect of conservation, our region seeks a whole of government mandate that includes policy and target infrastructure commitments that align with the scale and longevity of parallel regional protected area model, creation of Inuit-led regional governance system for protected areas, achievement of Qikiqtaaluk fisheries reconciliation agreement that will advance economic reconciliation, including support for new policies for Nunavut fisheries sector that expand access and participation in fisheries in the Qikiqtaaluk region. Sustainable regional protected and model involving all 13 Qikiqtaaluk communities. Direct and sustainable collaboration with communities, the government of Nunavut and the government of Canada, public donors, funders to confirm additional protected areas, marine and terrestrial protection measures. Thank you.
Jackson, over to you, please, now.
Merci. Good morning, everyone. Comme de Jose, on da go yanti merci oui c'est. On da cadre de quoi, donc dans un yacine les cadres des les dans na ce go yacine de merci de point de. On Prime Minister go hiwada, as a minister he merci qui c'est point de. Da dit ça que aïe ga ce tien da go dia de point de. Sambatang kia da dun za ho dia ha ho di on de. Da ga shin clinton government yacine le. The Prime Minister, Government of Canada, Kishala, so that same with the Inter. The Johnny now would the hotel on the Gashingo Shahotia, and then Yaguchi Dads on the Dipolazo. And the Dana Kishe now with a son as on. And the Desonke, Cheese on K, Tisa Disonke. What you knew who deal there. It's a gashin, clinch and garment, it's only who did ki hela za da zin wo zo zo nai zi gu ya zin de de ai zo ma si na yi. First of all, I'd just like to say good morning, and just to recognize that we're on the traditional territory of Mohawk territory, also the Turtle Island. I'd like to say masi for welcoming us to your traditional territory, and to the elder, masi for your blessing for a brand new day today, and also to my fellow colleagues, Indigenous leaders from across the country, and to our Prime Minister and Minister Masi for this opportunity. And first of all, I'd just like to say it's out of respect, and also our tradition is to recognize our elders. And we have a couple elders here with us today from our jurisdiction. And Ethel Blondin Andrews, a lot of people know her, and also her husband, Mr. Andrews as well. I just want to say Masi for joining us, Leon and Ethel. And it's such a great honor to be before you to speak on this very important matter. My name is Jackson Lafferty. I'm the Grand Chief for Clinchon Nation, Clinchon Government, Northwest Territories. And it's truly an honor to be here to speak to you and to take part in this very historical funding announcement here today. This funding represents an unprecedented opportunity to invest in Indigenous-led conservation and stewardship efforts across a great country of Canada. So the kind of support that was announced by our Prime Minister today, it is a significant step forward, a path forward to reconciliation across Canada. And I will entrust the Indigenous people across Canada with resources, the tools that they need to achieve their dream or their vision of our land protection, the conservation now, and also into the future. As one of our leaders indicated, it's all for our younger generation as well. The Clinchon people of Northwest Territories have been stewards of the lands and waters, the waterways, throughout our traditional territory of Mofiga de Nitle since time immemorial. Nearly 2 decades, the Clinchon entered into a Clinchon Agreement, our comprehensive land claims and self-government agreement or modern treaty with Government of Canada and Government of Northwest Territories. With this, we gain greater recognition of our rights, authorities, and also jurisdictions. We now own Clinchon lands as fee simple and hold surface and subsurface rights within them in the Northwest Territories. Our Clinchon lands are in the heart of Mofiga de Nitle and make up upwards of 39,000 square kilometers of our land. We now co-manage land and resources within Wick AG management area, which is also within our traditional territory. The Clinchon government is leading crucial work on the ground of steward the land of the Mofiga de Nitle in the Wick AG management area, which consists of various partners on Clinchon land, private lands. As a self-government that holds surface and also subsurface rights to our lands for the Clinchon, and protecting lands and conserving biodiversity is a matter of establishing and also implementing our own Clinchon laws. It is a matter of working together with our treaty partners, such as Canada and Government of Northwest Territories, to co-manage, as Prime Minister indicated on various occasions, true partnership. Taking care of our lands and water is our key priorities for our Clinchon government, our Clinchon people, our Clinchon nation, just as they are for Indigenous people across our great country, as you've heard from our Indigenous leaders. We have witnessed firsthand the decline of our caribou in the Northwest Territories and many, many challenges and changes to our land due to industries and climate change. We live with these impacts. These changes have on our well-being of our lives and our way of life. We have many programs in place to prevent further decline and to preserve our lands and waters and the diverse wildlife within them for future generations to come. We have already protected many culturally and environmentally important areas through our Clinchon lands protection, the laws, and also Clinchon Wenege, our Clinchon land use. We have been working hard to protect Duna Wikehodi, a portion of our north arm of Great Slave Lake. It's a place of a powerful spiritual gathering significance to the Clinchon as inhabited by many species at risk. For the Clinchon in the Northwest Territories and the other Indigenous leaders and groups across Canada, we are already doing important work as we are here witnessing today. But we do, over the years, lack of resources, sufficient resources to get the job done, to achieve all that we envision, both in short term and also long term. The funding announced here today by our Prime Minister recognizes the critical importance and the incredible opportunity that Indigenous-led stewardship presents. And again, it is a true partnership. This has the potential to improve the well-being of our people across our Great North and our Canada, move us forward on the path towards reconciliation. And we've heard that over and over, even from our Prime Minister, reconciliation is a tool now. This funding will be a powerful tool to ensure that Indigenous people across Canada are able to realize their vision of conservation and protection of chart of our path to a better future of all Canadians. With that, Mr. Prime Minister, Masi Cho for your announcement today. Masi.
Dallas, can I invite you now to the podium?
Stopwatch. Kayla Gigame, I just want to thank you for the wonderful opening and putting our hearts and souls in the right place. Wow, I don't even know where to start. I was all ready to show my Every Child Matters t-shirt and talk about the challenges our communities still face on a daily basis. But it's important to keep picture of the fact that we're taking control of our own destiny again, thanks to today's wonderful announcement. Thank you to both of you for this tremendous, bold step. First, I want to thank my colleague Christine Smith-Martin for being here with us and helping with the leadership to bring our communities to this position where we're can take advantage of the opportunities that partnership brings to us. I was on a podium like this 15 years ago when we announced the protection of the terrestrial lands of the Great Bear Rainforest. We protected 70% of our terrestrial territories. I did media all over the world, and I got home and my elders said, don't sprain your arm patting yourself on the back, because until you do the marine component, it doesn't mean anything. And so to take these steps to bring that holistic view of our lands and resources and to be in a position to take a real run at managing the impacts of climate change and human development is a real special place to be, not only for our communities, but for those communities around us. These 4 communities have shown a leadership, and they've taken steps that have enabled them to step forward and show that we can do things right. I want to thank the philanthropic community who believed in the visions of First Nations communities to go in the right path. Having a fairy godmother isn't enough, though. It takes leadership, and it takes leadership by all the parties involved to get us to where we need to go in today's crucial times of climate change and what we're dealing with. I think one of the most important messages that we're delivering as Indigenous people with our colleagues here on the stage and across Canada is we're not simply dependent on the ecosystems that we protect and manage and commit to maintain as we have since millennia. We're simply a healthy part of that, and if those ecosystems aren't healthy, we can't consider our communities healthy. And this funding opportunity gives us a true opportunity to get there and show that that balance can be there. I believe in a blue economy. I believe in the direction that you're taking this country in, and I'm very honored that you're including our communities to go there beside you. Gaila Kasla, thank you.
Merci beaucoup. On va commencer.
Je pense que c'est extraordinairement important de prendre encore un moment pour remercier ces leaders au Québec. On sait que la langue est importante, donc je vais le faire dans leur propre langue. Miigwech, Kuyanamik, Masicho, Gaila Kasla. Thank you very much for everything you guys are bringing today, in your confidence in the land, confidence in your people, and confidence in the partnership we are building right now. C'est un moment extrêmement important pour le Canada, mais un exemple aussi pour le monde. Et on est ravis de vous avoir ici avec nous aujourd'hui. Merci. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va commencer la période de questions pour 20 minutes, en commençant avec le premier journaliste.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Kyle Mazza from UNF News. Nice to see you and hope you're well. On the heels of the COP conference, there's been diversity, there's been inclusion, and also bringing together everyone. On the heels of that, back in the United States, anti-Semitism is on the rise. Many are talking hate and spewing bigotry, including Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. So what would you say to those who are saying these things and spouting these anti-Semitism tropes? How would you respond to that as a country that prides itself on inclusion and diversity? Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you for your question. And I think we're seeing here at this largest nature COP in history what happens when people come together and listen to a range of perspectives and knowledges in respect and in partnership to move forward. And indeed, as you point out, Canada is one of the places in the world where we do diversity as well, if not better, than most other places. We know that tolerance is not enough. If you think about it, tolerating someone is putting up with them, is barely allowing them to exist as long as they don't bother you. There isn't a religion in the world that says tolerate thy neighbor. We talk about acceptance, friendship, and love. And that's what we have to stay focused on, that level of deep, deep respect and ability to learn from each other. But let's not kid ourselves. Canada isn't some magical place. Like every part of the world, particularly after the pandemic, we've seen an increase in hate crimes, an increase in intolerance, in anti-Semitism, in Islamophobia, in anti-Asian racism, in anti-black racism, in Indigenous racism, anti-Indigenous racism, anti-LGBT, hateful commentary. And it reminds us that we all have to stay vigilant, that we all have a responsibility to speak up and be allies. It cannot just be for the Jewish community to speak out on anti-Semitism. It's up to all of us to do that. And I think that's something that Canadians and people around the world are expecting of themselves, of their neighbors, of everyone. Unfortunately, we're seeing a rise in polarization, in hatred and intolerance, and it's up to everyone who sees it to call it out and to stand against it. It is unacceptable that these narratives are growing and being encouraged and enhanced by those who should know better. And all of us have a role to play in making sure that fundamental respect and openness towards each other continues to be at the heart of our strong communities. Merci.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Good morning, Morgan Lowry from the Canadian Press. Briefly shifting to another topic. Muslim charities say they're being unfairly singled out for audits by the Canada Revenue Agency, and the CRA Ombudsman now says he can't access the information he needs to look into it. Will the government simply abolish the 2015 National Risk Assessment developed by the Harper government that allowed these audits to happen?
We know that Muslim charities in Canada have faced systemic challenges and barriers that go back many, many years, indeed, starting with actions under the previous government. And I can assure you that this government has continued to work towards creating accountability and openness and ensuring that this systemic discrimination no longer happens. Our Revenue Minister, Diane Leboutillier, has been taking this extremely seriously with CRA that is an arm's-length agency, but we know there is significantly more to do, and we will look at what next steps can be taken.
Prochaine question.
Bonjour, Raymond Filion de TVA. Pour revenir au sujet d'aujourd'hui, plusieurs personnes à travers le Canada disent que davantage de territoires devraient aussi être protégés dans le sud, là où les gens sont très nombreux. Ici, à Montréal, il y a le Technoparc, près de l'aéroport Pierre-Éliott Trudeau, qui est un vaste endroit où vivent des espèces menacées. Pourquoi votre gouvernement refuse d'acquiescer à la demande des maires, entre autres, qui demandent à ce que ce soit protégé?
On sait que si on veut atteindre le 30% d'air protégé de notre terre et de nos zones marines, nous allons devoir faire beaucoup, beaucoup plus que juste ce qu'on voit ici. On sait que protéger 30% de notre territoire va exiger qu'on fasse énormément de partenariats. D'abord et avant tout, des partenariats avec les peuples autochtones qui protègent ces territoires depuis des millénaires et ont les connaissances et l'approche, la sensibilité pour continuer à protéger pour les prochaines générations. Mais nous devons aussi évidemment travailler avec les autres ordres de gouvernement, les provinces, les municipalités. Et nous sommes là pour faire le travail. Il y a bien des projets qu'on est en train de regarder. Je vais souligner ce projet et cette initiative-là. Mais nous allons continuer de faire le travail de façon agressive parce qu'on se doit de protéger nos territoires pour les générations futures et on se doit de démontrer aussi l'exemple aux autres pays du monde qui doivent en faire pareil. Stephen, as-tu un commentaire là-dessus?
Merci. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Brièvement, je pense qu'en politique, c'est de bonne guerre d'un parti d'opposition de lancer une pétition et dire au gouvernement, si vous n'êtes pas d'accord avec ma pétition, vous n'êtes pas d'accord avec le projet. Ce n'est évidemment pas le cas. Nous travaillons activement avec Aéroport de Montréal. Je travaille, même avant mon arrivée au ministère de l'Environnement, avec les groupes locaux, la Ville de Montréal et Aéroport de Montréal. Et comme vous le savez probablement, nous avons lancé des consultations pour inscrire le papillon monarque sur la liste des espèces en péril du gouvernement du Canada, ce qui va nous donner des pouvoirs supplémentaires pour protéger l'habitat du papillon, notamment sur toutes les terres fédérales, incluant les terres qui sont sous administration, par exemple, par Aéroport de Montréal. Merci.
In English, please, Prime Minister. In English.
We know that there's an awful lot of work to do here in Canada and indeed around the world to hit the essential target of protecting 30% of our land, 30% of our water by 2030. But that's an essential step if we're going to halt and reverse the decline of biodiversity around the world. And that's something that matters deeply, not just to people in a moral sense of having clean air and fresh water for generations to come, but our economy. All of our activities rely on ecosystems that are healthy and resilient. And that's why we're moving forward significantly. We are obviously moving forward on some very big partnerships with Indigenous communities in the lead to be able to protect large parts of Canada. but there's work to do in every corner of the country. We don't get there unless we all step up and are part of it, and we'll be looking to provinces and municipalities as well as the private sector and civil society to be full partners as we reach this ambitious goal that will help us fight climate change, help us have more resilient communities and ecosystems, and protect the biodiversity that keeps our world strong and rich.
Prochaine question.
Hi, David Thurton from CBC. Good morning, Prime Minister. Two quick questions, and if you could respond in French and English, that would be amazing. Just how's it going getting the premiers on board to support the work that needs to be done to expand these protected areas? And then secondly, of course, Radio-Canada is reporting that the RCMP is using equipment from an organization that has ties to the Chinese regime, an organization, a firm that was banned or blacklisted in the United States. Will your government do what I think people are expecting your government to do when they read a story like that, which is just rip out that equipment? And in French and English, please.
First of all, the announcements we're making today are an example of what can happen when we work hand in hand with partners to protect large swaths of Canada's land for the future. Obviously, Indigenous partnerships are at the centre of that because we know that the world not only looks to Canada as a place where nature is protected and we're doing the right things on fighting climate change, but as a place that is showing real leadership on what reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, with people who've shown the way on stewardship for millennia in order to move forward. It's not to say we always get it right on Indigenous reconciliation. There's much more work to do. But this is an example of those positive partnerships that can happen. And I know that all of these organizations have worked directly with provincial and territorial governments on protections, and we as a federal government will continue to work with provinces and territories as we reach these ambitious goals. I was pleased to hear Premier Legault yesterday announce that Quebec has a plan to reach 30% by 2030 as well. We're going to need all of us to step up together if we're going to reach this, and I look forward to that work. C'est extrêmement important de travailler avec des partenaires pour protéger nos terres pour l'avenir. Évidemment, les partenariats avec les peuples autochtones est à la base de l'annonce aujourd'hui. C'est un exemple pour le monde, mais je peux dire que toutes ces communautés autochtones ont aussi travaillé avec les gouvernements provinciaux et territoriaux dans leurs projets. Et nous, en tant que gouvernement fédéral, on va toujours travailler avec les territoires et les provinces pour protéger notre environnement et lutter contre les changements climatiques. Je peux souligner que c'était une très bonne nouvelle que le gouvernement du Québec, que François Legault a annoncé hier, qu'il avait un plan pour atteindre le 30% de protection des terres du Québec d'ici 2030. On va continuer de travailler ensemble sur ce but partagé. In regards to the news on the contracts, I find it disconcerting that while parts of the government's security agencies were advising us as a government and as Canadians that we have to be very careful about foreign interference in our institutions, in our structures, in the way we do business and keep Canadians safe, that other parts of the civil service were signing contracts that have questionable levels of security for our operations and our national security institutions like the RCMP. So absolutely we're going to be following up on this, finding out, first of all, what needs to be done to ensure that our communications technology is secure, but also make sure we're figuring out how this could continue to happen and make sure that Canada is not signing contracts with the lowest bidder that then turn around and leave us exposed to security flaws. We will have some real questions for the independent public service that signed these contracts, and we'll make sure that this is changed going forward. It's high time that happens. Je pense que c'est préoccupant de voir que pendant certains secteurs de la fonction publique, nos agences de sécurité et renseignement nous parlent depuis bien des années des inquiétudes qu'ils ont par rapport à l'ingérence et l'interférence étrangère dans nos institutions, dans nos mesures de sécurité, que d'autres fonctionnaires dans d'autres parties de notre gouvernement soient en train de signer des contrats avec des compagnies qui ne sont pas des partenaires, sont probablement pas des partenaires fiables en matière de sécurité. Donc, nous allons avoir deux questions pour la fonction publique. D'abord, qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire immédiatement pour sécuriser l'intégrité de nos communications par rapport à la GRC et autres instances que nous avons, mais aussi comment est-ce qu'on va s'assurer qu'on arrête de signer des contrats avec des compagnies qui ne sont pas fiables à ce niveau-là.
Prochaine question.
Bon matin, Étienne Fortin-Gauthier avec Nouveau Info. Lundi, à la COP 15, la Russie a tenté de paralyser les discussions en matière d'égalité hommes-femmes et de biodiversité. J'aimerais avoir votre réaction, M. Trudeau. Et M. Guilbeault, pourquoi est-ce que l'enjeu du genre est aussi important pour le Canada et d'autres pays et défendu à cette COP 15?
Tout d'abord, c'est une COP gérée par les Nations unies et donc, à cause de ça, tous les pays sont invités, même des pays comme la Russie, qui sont des acteurs extrêmement néfastes sur l'échiquier mondial ces jours-ci. Pas juste avec leur invasion irresponsable et illégale de l'Ukraine, mais avec leur oppression continue contre les communautés LGBT, les femmes et d'autres. Donc, oui, nous allons toujours défendre les valeurs d'ouverture, de diversité, l'égalité homme-femme. Et c'est pas juste une question de principe moral. On sait que pour la paix, la sécurité, la stabilité d'une communauté, bâtir un avenir meilleur, les femmes sont essentielles. Si on comptait juste sur les hommes, ce serait moins fait, ce serait moins bien fait. On sait que quand il y a un grand défi, il faut compter sur les mères, les grands-mères, les femmes dans les communautés pour mener les initiatives de sécurité, de paix, l'environnement. Et donc, nous allons continuer de défendre la diversité et l'égalité dans tout le travail qu'on fait. D'ailleurs, c'est des principes qui sont protégés par les Nations unies eux-mêmes et nous attendons à ce que ça fasse partie intégrale du travail que nous allons faire ici à Montréal, ici au Canada. Mais je suis content de passer la parole à Stephen.
Je n'ai rien à ajouter, Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Des fois, il y a des détails par rapport à la COP, mais c'est beau.
Mais M. Guilbeault, pourquoi l'enjeu du genre en biodiversité? Expliquez-nous cet enjeu-là.
Si je peux ajouter sur ce que le Premier ministre a dit, nous savons que les victimes des impacts des changements climatiques, les victimes de la perte de nature, de biodiversité, sont les peuples autochtones et sont notamment les femmes. Alors d'avoir une perspective à la fois au niveau des peuples autochtones, mais aussi une perspective féministe dans le cadre de ces négociations-là, c'est une façon de nous assurer que les solutions que nous mettons de l'avant sont adaptées aux gens qui en subissent le plus les impacts et qui vont aussi être au cœur, comme c'est le cas aujourd'hui, des solutions que nous allons trouver à ces grands problèmes environnementaux.
Prochaine question.
Gabrielle Proulx de Radio-Canada. Juste pour enchérir sur la question de mon collègue de CBC en lien avec Sinclair Technologies, là, qui est détenu en partie par des intérêts chinois. Je comprends que vous attendez des réponses de la fonction publique, mais est-ce que vous allez tout de même revoir les critères de sécurité en matière d'appel d'offres? Puis est-ce que vous attendez aussi à ce qu'on annule carrément le contrat?
Bien, certainement, il va falloir revoir les protocoles de sécurité par rapport aux appels d'offres. En tant que gouvernement, on s'attend à ce que des contrats de ce style soient octroyés de façon rigoureuse et indépendante. Oui, on veut avoir des contrats à prix abordable pour les contribuables, mais on doit s'assurer de l'intégrité de la sécurité. Et évidemment, selon les rapports qu'on lit, ça n'a pas été fait dans cette situation-là. Alors, on va absolument faire des suivis. Par rapport à quelles mesures on doit prendre maintenant pour assurer la sécurité de nos communications, on va évidemment regarder ça de très proche et on va prendre les mesures appropriées, mais c'est trop tôt pour dire exactement ce dont on va avoir besoin.
En anglais, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. Obviously, We count as a government on independent civil servants to sign contracts and ensure rigorous processes of evaluations of partners on a range of initiatives that the government requires, whether it be procurement or others. And obviously we have to ensure that it is explicitly spelled out that sensitive contracts that implicate issues of national security need to be provided to only reliable sources of procurement. We will, of course, look at whether our communication systems are compromised. Obviously, we're just looking into it right now following on this report, and we will make sure that we take the necessary steps, but it's too early to say what the necessary steps to ensure the integrity of our communication systems could be.
Une dernière question?
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Pierre Saint-Arnaud de la presse canadienne. Je regarde les territoires dont il est question ici. Ce sont des territoires qui sont vastes, ce sont des territoires qui sont riches en ressources naturelles. Quelles sont les garanties dans vos ententes de protection de ces territoires-là par rapport à l'exploitation des richesses naturelles? Quelle protection a-t-on et quelle entente a-t-on sur une éventuelle exploitation des richesses s'il y en a une qui sera permise?
Tout d'abord, on sait très bien que le Canada continue d'avoir énormément de ressources naturelles dont non seulement les Canadiens, mais les gens à travers le monde ont besoin. Quand on regarde notre stratégie de minéraux critiques qui sont essentiels pour le développement de batteries électriques, pour le développement de nouvelles technologies à travers le monde, particulièrement qu'il y a des endroits comme la Chine et la Russie qui sont pourvoyeurs de ces minéraux qui sont de moins en moins fiables sur l'échiquier mondial. Il y a une opportunité pour le Canada d'être là pour fournir les ressources dont nous avons tous besoin dans la transition vers un monde net zéro carboneutre. Mais le développement et l'exploitation de ces ressources doit être fait de façon responsable. Et ça, c'est responsable au niveau de l'environnement et de la pollution, mais aussi responsable au niveau des retombées économiques. Et c'est pour ça que le partenariat avec les peuples autochtones est tellement important. Quand on parle de leur territoire, de leurs droits, il faut qu'ils fassent partie de tout travail d'exploitation ou de développement qui se fait sur ces territoires-là. Alors, en signant ces accords, ces intentions et en développant les modalités et les spécificités, c'est eux qui vont faire partie de la discussion de où on devrait plus protéger, où il y aurait de la place pour du développement et à quelles conditions ils vont accéder ce développement-là. C'est une question de reconnaître qu'on ne peut pas développer nos ressources sans le faire en partenariat de façon intègre avec les Premières Nations, avec les Inuits et les Métis. Alors, c'est une nouvelle approche, mais les détails, comme vous soulignez, vont être à regarder, à négocier au fur et à mesure qu'on développe ces aires protégées pour permettre, oui, un développement responsable du territoire de façon économique, pour créer des emplois en ressources naturelles, tout en s'assurant de la protection réelle et long terme de ces aires vulnérables. I think it's extremely important to highlight that Canada is a country of natural resources. We have so many of the critical minerals, in particular, that the world needs, and that the world is now looking to China and Russia, for example, as increasingly unreliable suppliers of the essential minerals and resources needed for our transition towards a net zero world. So Canada can and will be a reliable supplier of the minerals the world needs in the world. But part of being a reliable supplier means doing it right. Means putting environmental protections at the heart of everything we do, and mostly ensuring that future development happens not just in consultation with, but in full partnership with Indigenous peoples. And those discussions around what areas we need to make sure are completely protected and where there can be responsible development are exactly the kinds of things that partnerships with Indigenous peoples will lead on. Because we know we need jobs, we know we need protected areas, we know we need economic development. Nobody knows that and the importance of that balance better than Indigenous communities themselves that have been left out of this equation, not just in Canada but around the world for too long. So what we're doing now with these areas is highlighting that this partnership on developing areas to protect and how to protect them and how to make sure that goes hand in hand with responsible targeted development where it makes sense. It's not something for us to decide as governments or as multinationals anymore. It's something for Indigenous peoples to decide what happens on their territory in their areas. And the steps we're taking today about ensconcing that partnership deep in our path towards 2030 and towards net zero is what this announcement is all about.
Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui met à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.